everyone, welcome to today's musing, and I'd like to focus today on gratitude. Very often in our lives we're not always grateful, are we? Bad things happen, we listen to the news, it seems like the whole world is in chaos, that evil reigns. The interesting thing we learn from Swedenborg is that that's not the reality, is that the divine and the angels are with us constantly, turning us away from the bad stuff and asking us to focus on the good things that the divine provides. We know that on this earth there are wars, there's chaos, there's hunger, there's hatred. An example of how hell would have us believe that there is no salvation, that in fact we're all going to hell in a handbasket. But we know that in our heads, we know that that is not true. So I'm going to remind you of a few stories in the Bible that illustrate that. Now, when Jesus was in Jerusalem, he healed 10 lepers, right? These are people who knew that without his help, they were going to be destined to be kept away from other humans, which we know now today is not how we are arranged. We need to be with people. Even if we're introverts, we need to be with other people. But the interesting thing in this story, if you may remember, is that only one leper came back to thank Jesus for healing him. And of course, Jesus' question was, well, where are all the others? And that is certainly a good question to ask. Where were they? Did they forget? We all forget. We forget to thank the divine every day for the many things he gives us. But there's another story that I really love, which is the story of the woman who touched the hem of his garment. Do you remember? She'd been bleeding for 12 years. I'm amazed she was still alive. And she'd been to all the doctors and spent all her money on trying to get some way of being healed. But she just knew if she just touched the hem of his garment, she'd be healed. And of course, the minute she did it, Jesus said, "Who touched me?" And of course, the disciples were trying to say, What do you mean, who touched you? Look at all these people crowding around you. But she finally admitted that she did. And he called her daughter, which I find so beautiful. Considering that day, women were very much second class. Basically, I get the impression that they were only there to produce men, that's all they were thought of. But Jesus called her daughter. Consider the gratitude that woman felt when she'd been healed after all these years she'd suffered. Excuse me while I decline something. So, what other stories do we have from the Bible? Here's another one. How about the Samaritan woman? Remember, Samaritans were very much connected to the Jewish people, but they weren't considered as good as the Jewish people. And this is a story where Jesus asked her for water. His disciples had gone off to get food, and she was amazed that he actually asked her, a Samaritan woman, for a drink. And then after a little bit of back and forth, you might remember, he told her that she'd had 5 husbands, and the one she was now with was not her husband. And she was absolutely bemused. How did you know? You know? And you get this back and forth, back and forth. And he says to her, "You're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is you've had 5 husbands and the man you're now with is not your husband." And then she talks about Jesus being a Jew and her being a Samaritan. And it's quite a long passage, but it's a beautiful one. And of course, at the end, she says, well, I know that there's going to be a Messiah to save us all. And of course, what did Jesus say? The only person he spoke about. He said to her, I, the one speaking to you, am he. You can imagine her excitement of finding out that she had met the Messiah. And of course, it influenced her family and friends. Maybe we can feel that now and again, this idea that Jesus is there for all of us. The Divine One is there for all of us. We can be excited because he looks after us, and we can be grateful. May God bless you all.